On the afternoon of July 12, 2014, a 52-year-old man named Gregory Cardwell pulled off Trail Ridge Road at an overlook called Rainbow Curve, 10,829 feet above sea level, and got out of his car to look at the view. He wasn't climbing anything. He wasn't hiking. He had stopped at a paved pull-off with a parking area, the kind of place you stop at for 4 minutes on a family drive through Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. He was dead before the day was over. Not from a fall, not from the cold, not from the altitude that leaves visitors dizzy on that stretch of road every single afternoon of the summer. A single bolt of lightning came out of a storm sitting off to the east. East is the direction Rainbow Curve faces. East is the direction every person standing at that railing was looking. What nobody at that overlook knew was this. In the 5 minutes before that bolt came down, the storm that produced it had not put a single strike on the ground anywhere within 6 miles of them. Not one. There was nothing to count, there was nothing to hear, and it was not the first one that week. 27 hours earlier, 1 3/4 miles from where Gregory Cardwell was standing, the same afternoon pattern had already killed somebody else. More than 4 million people come to Rocky Mountain National Park every year, and most of them drive this road. 11 miles of it run above the tree line, across open alpine tundra, where nothing taller than your car has grown in thousands of years. The National Park Service describes those 11 miles in a sentence worth keeping in your head for the next half hour. Few guardrails, no shoulders. You're about to find out what that actually means. The road is Trail Ridge Road. On the map, it's United States Highway 34, and it runs 48 miles between the town of Estes Park on the eastern side of the national park and the town of Grand Lake on the west. Its high point is 12,183 feet above sea level, and that number is the reason people know its name. Trail Ridge Road is the highest continuous paved road in the United States. That word in the middle is doing a lot of work, and if you skip past it, you'll get the whole thing wrong. There is paved road in Colorado that climbs higher. Mount Blue Sky Road, which the map calls Colorado State Highway 5, tops out at roughly 14,100 feet, a good 1,900 feet above anything on Trail Ridge. But Mount Blue Sky Road climbs a mountain, stops near the summit, and ends. You turn the car around and you come back down the way you came. Continuous means it goes somewhere. The pavement climbs to 12,000 feet, crosses the top of the world for 11 miles, comes over the Continental Divide at Milner Pass, and drops down the far side into a different town in a different valley. Nobody turns around. You can drive onto it in Estes Park in the morning and be in Grand Lake for lunch, and the entire middle of that drive takes place somewhere no tree has ever managed to live. That's the claim. Now here's what the claim costs you. Treeline in this part of Colorado sits near 11,500 feet. That's the elevation where the park's evergreen forests simply stop, in a line you can see from 30 miles away, because above it, nothing woody survives the wind and the cold and the length of the winter. 11 miles of Trail Ridge Road travel above that line. The Park Service describes conditions up there as resembling the Canadian or Alaskan Arctic in July. It's normally windy, and it runs 20 to 30 degrees colder than Estes Park or Grand Lake, the towns you left 40 minutes ago wearing a t-shirt. No trees, no buildings, no shoulder to pull onto, no guardrail worth the name for most of it, nothing on either side of the pavement but tundra, and then the drop. The tundra doesn't hide anything from you up there. That's the whole appeal, and it's the reason traffic crawls along it all summer with the windows down. You can see for miles in every direction. What the tundra also doesn't do is cover you. It has nothing to cover you with, and your body already knows something is off before anything else happens. There's meaningfully less oxygen in the air at 12,000 feet than there is where you live, and your body notices within minutes of you opening the car door. Headache, nausea, dizziness. A shortness of breath that has nothing to do with how fit you are. Symptoms like these are common in visitors above 10,000 feet, regardless of age or conditioning, which is why the store at the top of this road sells canned oxygen to tourists for about $10. That's easy to hear as a novelty item, a gift shop gimmick for people who want a story. It isn't. The store stocks it because visitors walk 200 yards from their car on a paved trail, sit down on a rock, and then can't get back up. You get out for a photograph and the ground tilts a little. That's the ordinary version of what this elevation does to a visitor. And almost everybody who drives Trail Ridge Road gets exactly that version and nothing more. They take the picture, they get back in the car, they drive down the west side, and they tell people it was beautiful. The rest of this is about the other version. Across those 11 miles above treeline, there is exactly one building. The Alpine Visitor Center sits at 11,796 feet on Fall River Pass, and it's the highest elevation visitor center anywhere in the entire national park system. The Trail Ridge store is attached to it. Bathrooms, a small cafe, a gift shop, a roof. That's the list. One roof on a road that spans 11 miles where the sky can reach you. Everybody who drives this road stops somewhere else too, because the whole point of the road is the pull-offs. Rainbow Curve, Forest Canyon Overlook, the Gore Range Overlook, Rock Cut. You pull in, you turn the engine off, you get out with your phone in your hand, and you walk 20 or 30 feet away from the car to get the shot without the parking lot in it. That decision seems like nothing at the time. It isn't nothing. Rocky Mountain National Park, September 1929. Crews under the Bureau of Public Roads begin cutting a new road across the top of the park, and they're building it to fix a problem. The road it's replacing is Old Fall River Road, and Old Fall River Road had become a bad joke. It was too narrow for the number of cars showing up. It was hit constantly by snowslides. It held deep snow late into the year, and for a scenic road, it had a real weakness, which was that you couldn't see much from it. So they went higher, and they went along the ridge instead of up the valley, and the scenery problem solved itself immediately. The build did not. At peak, the job ran about 150 laborers. The working season was roughly 4 months, from the middle of June to the middle of October, because that's all the weather at that elevation would give them. Everything else in the calendar was snow. They had tractors, they had graders, they had horses, and they had a gasoline-powered steam shovel, and they were using all of it above 11,000 feet, where a healthy man gets winded walking uphill with an empty shovel. And they were building under a specification that's the most interesting thing about this road, and the part almost nobody driving it has ever heard. The instruction was that the road must not scar the tundra, not minimize the damage, not restore it afterward, the cut itself was supposed to disappear. So the crews took the natural debris out instead of pushing it over the side. They built log and rock dikes to keep the working area from bleeding out across the plants. When they blasted or dug, the tundra sod that came up was salvaged, kept, and then carefully placed back onto the banks of the finished road so it would knit in and grow. The loose surface rock got laid back down, lichen side up. That was a written instruction on a federal road job. Somebody stood on the roof of Colorado in 1930 and told a work crew which way to face the rocks because lichen takes decades to grow and a freshly turned stone announces itself from a quarter-mile away, and the whole point was that the new cut must not read as new. Rock formations that were in the way got kept as scenic features instead of blasted flat. The retaining walls were built from stone matched to the ground they sat in. And the maximum grade on the entire road never goes above 7%. They weren't building a road across the tundra. They were building one the tundra wouldn't show. The first section ran from Deer Ridge at 8,937 feet up to Fall River Pass at 11,794, 17.2 miles. It was finished to Fall River Pass in July of 1932, and the road didn't reach all the way through to Grand Lake until 1938. 9 years in 4-month pieces to build 48 miles of road. Hold on to that 4-month working season, because the men who built this road and the storms that kill people on it are working the exact same shift, and that has never once changed. July 11th, 2014, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Rebecca R. Thielhet was 42 years old from Yellow Springs, Ohio, and she was hiking on the Ute Trail with a group just below Trail Ridge Road at roughly 11,400 feet, on the stretch between Rainbow Curve and the Forest Canyon Overlook. This is not a remote place. You can see the road from it. The Ute Trail crosses the tundra a short walk from the pavement, and on a July afternoon, there is traffic moving on the road above it. A single flash of lightning struck the group. Rebecca Thielhet was killed. 7 other people in her hiking party were injured by the same flash. The park's own account and the National Weather Service's later analysis differ slightly on the exact minute and on how many people were counted as hurt, which happens when 8 people are down on open ground and the ambulances are 40 minutes away. What both accounts agree on is the detail that matters most, and it's the one that makes this case different from what you're probably imagining. They saw it coming. Her party knew there was a storm. It was visible, approaching from the west, and it was already producing lightning. They knew what that meant, and they moved. They just couldn't get anywhere in time, because there was nowhere within reach to get to. Now the National Weather Service office in Pueblo, Colorado, does something with cases like this that almost nobody outside the field ever sees. 3 meteorologists there, Stephen Hodenish, Paul Wolin, and Kyle Mosley, went back through both of these deaths flash by flash using the National Lightning Detection Network and reconstructed exactly what the sky was doing in the minutes before each one. Here's what they found on the Ute Trail. In the 5 minutes before the flash that killed Rebecca Thielhet, exactly 2 cloud-to-ground flashes hit the earth within 6 miles of her. One of them was 184 seconds before. The other was 41 seconds before. 2. That's an average rate of 4/10 of a flash per minute. 4/10 of a flash per minute is not a storm that's announcing itself. It is not the sky ripping open every few seconds the way it does over the plains. It's a bolt, then most of a minute of nothing, then another bolt. In a storm you can watch approaching and still badly misjudge, because everything in your experience of thunderstorms is telling you that a dangerous one is loud and constant, and this one isn't. The radar tells you the rest of it. Half an hour before Rebecca Tealhet was killed, that thunderstorm was 8 miles to the west of the Ute Trail, and it was a storm of ordinary, moderate intensity. Nothing about it stood out on a July afternoon in the Rockies. It came east at about 15 miles an hour, steadily, without doing anything dramatic. And it only started putting bolts on the ground once it was nearly on top of the trail. 8 miles at 15 miles an hour is a little over half an hour. That is the entire window. That is how long the sky gave a group of hikers standing on open tundra between Rainbow Curve and the Forest Canyon overlook to notice a storm that looked like every other storm, decide it was serious, and cover the distance to a building that was miles away. They noticed. They decided. They ran out of distance. And that's the case where they had warning. The next afternoon was worse. 3:47 in the afternoon, July 12th. Gregory Cardwell at Rainbow Curve, 10,829 feet, standing at the overlook we started with. Number of cloud-to-ground lightning flashes within 6 miles of him in the 5 minutes before the one that killed him. 0. Not a low number. 0. The rate was nothing at all. There was a strong storm cell sitting to his immediate east, and the overlook at Rainbow Curve looks east, out over the valley, so he was almost certainly watching it. The flash that killed him came out of the far western edge of that cell, the trailing side, the part reaching back over the road. The only lightning activity anywhere near him beforehand was inside the clouds, 4 to 6 miles to the north, and whether he heard any thunder from that at all is something the report says plainly cannot be known. 3 other people at Rainbow Curve were injured. 4 people in total left the park by ambulance that afternoon, including him. Others drove themselves down the mountain to the medical center in Estes Park, which is a long descent on switchbacks, in shock at the end of a family vacation. The park was asked afterward how many people had actually been hurt, and the answer was careful and honest and a little grim. Their information, they said, was based on the number of people who left by ambulance from the park, which was a total of 4, including the man who later died. The storm that kills you up here is not the loud one. So why 6 miles? That number has been sitting under everything for the last few minutes, and it isn't arbitrary. 6 miles is the distance in the 30-30 rule, the standard lightning safety guidance. It's the range inside which you're supposed to already be in real shelter, not heading toward it. It's the working definition of too close. And the Pueblo office had a bigger set to check that against. The lead author had by then analyzed 22 lightning casualty cases across Colorado going back to the year 2000. Of the 20 where the numbers could be worked out, 70% of the storms that killed or injured somebody were producing fewer than 1 flash per minute. 70%, the quiet ones. That is the mechanism, and it's worth being blunt about it because it inverts the thing everybody thinks they know. The dangerous storm is not the one hammering the ridge. The dangerous storm is the one you look at, decide you've got a few minutes with, and take one more picture in front of. At sea level, with a building 50 yards away, that misjudgment costs you nothing. You're wrong, you get rained on, you walk inside. A distant thunderstorm from a parking lot in Ohio is weather. 11 miles above treeline, with one roof on the entire road, being wrong about a storm is a different category of thing entirely. Now do the arithmetic yourself, because this is the part the road never puts on a sign. 11 miles above the trees, one building at Fall River Pass near the middle, a 6-mile radius that defines safe, which means that at the two ends of the above treeline section, you are 3 to 5 miles of switchback driving away from the only structure there is on a road with a speed limit low enough that you are not covering that distance quickly. Your car counts as shelter, and that's real, and it's the single most useful fact in this whole video. A hard-topped vehicle with the doors closed and the windows up is genuinely safe. But nobody drives Trail Ridge Road to sit in the car. That's not what the pull-offs are for. That's not what the overlooks were built to do. The entire design of this road, from 1929 onward, is an invitation to stop the car and get out and stand on the tundra, which is exactly and precisely the thing that gets people killed on it. You are safe in the vehicle. The road exists to get you out of the vehicle. That's not a design flaw, and nobody is hiding it. It's just the deal, and the deal is only visible if somebody says it out loud. Two people found the edge of that deal on consecutive afternoons in July of 2014. Rebecca Tailhet, 42, out of Ohio, on a marked trail a short walk from the pavement. Gregory Cardwell, 52, out of Nebraska, standing at a paved overlook next to his own parked car. 1 3/4 miles apart, 27 hours apart. Neither of them doing anything more reckless than what the road was built to encourage. Lightning is one way the tundra gets you. It is not the only one. At about 10 minutes to 9 on the evening of September 1st, 2022, a 54-year-old man from Florida drove a small SUV off Trail Ridge Road just east of the Gore Range overlook. There was no guardrail there to stop him. The vehicle went down the slope and came to rest roughly 500 feet below the pavement. 500 feet is not a ditch. It's not a shoulder you can be winched back onto. It's a drop roughly the height of a 40-story building, straight down a rock and tundra face in the dark in September above the tree line. He lived. He was the only person in the vehicle, and he was able to climb back up to the road with help from park staff and the Estes Valley Fire Protection District, and he left the park by ambulance. Nobody knew he was down there until another visitor happened to spot the SUV off the side and reported it. The next morning, the park closed the road for about 4 hours, while crews and a towing company hauled the vehicle back up and picked up every piece of debris that had come off it. Because the specification from 1929 is still the specification, and you do not leave a scattered car on tundra that took a century to grow back. And this is exactly what the Park Service means when it writes the sentence it puts out every single year. With 11 miles of road located at elevations above 11,500 feet, few guardrails, and no shoulders, Trail Ridge Road is not designed to be an all-season road. Few guardrails, no shoulders. There's a detail in that phrasing that almost nobody notices. It doesn't say the road is dangerous. It says the road wasn't designed for a condition. That's an engineering statement about scope, not a warning label. And it's the most honest thing anybody has ever written about this place. Because a road with no shoulder doesn't have a version of leaving the pavement that ends in a ditch. There is no minor version. You are on the road or you are off the mountain. The mistakes that get made up here aren't exotic either. On September 8, 2024, a 23-year-old man came in through the Grand Lake entrance and drove the full length of the park on Highway 34 at high speed, passing cars, refusing to yield to rangers, before crashing and running from the scene on foot. Different mistake entirely. Same road, same complete absence of anywhere to put a car that has stopped being on the road. Trail Ridge Road was never built to forgive anybody. It was built to be invisible from a distance, and those two things turn out to be the same decision. Now, step back from the pavement for a second, because there's a fact about this road that reframes everything you've just heard. Trail Ridge Road is closed most of the year. Not occasionally, not during storms, closed. It shuts to through traffic in the second half of October, and the 2024 season ended on October 25th. It does not reopen to through travel until the last week of May. Winter conditions of drifting snow, high winds, and below freezing temperatures occur above 10,000 feet, and the Park Service gives the same reason for the closure that it gives for everything else about this road. 11 miles above 11,500 feet, few guardrails, no shoulders. The road is not fighting the winter, it concedes, which means everything you've heard so far, every death, every rescue, every dizzy tourist buying a can of oxygen, happens inside a window of about 5 months. The road is only allowed to exist in summer, and summer at 12,000 feet is when the afternoon thunderstorms build. Getting it open again is its own operation, and it's genuinely one of the strangest jobs in American road maintenance. Plowing starts in the middle of April, when the road has been buried for 6 months. Crews work it from both ends at once, one team climbing from the east side out of Estes Park, one team climbing from the west out of Grand Lake, cutting toward each other until they finally meet somewhere near the Alpine Visitor Center at the top. It takes 42 days on average, 6 weeks of full-time work to uncover 48 miles of pavement. The equipment is built for a scale that doesn't exist in normal snow removal. The rotary plow can cut into drifts up to 21 feet high. The blower can throw the snow it eats 150 feet clear of the road. In one recent spring, the operators were working average drifts of 18 to 22 feet, which is to say the road wasn't under snow, the road was under a 2-story building made of snow. Opening Trail Ridge alone costs the park more than $36,000. Opening it along with Old Fall River Road, the narrow route it replaced back in the 1930s, runs about $58,000. The fastest the crews have ever cut their way up to the Alpine Visitor Center is 2 days. 2 days, from the bottom to the highest visitor center in the national park system, which sounds like the mountains simply let them through that year. Then the road drifted closed again behind them. That's the detail to hold on to out of the whole plowing operation. Depth was never the real problem. Clearing the road means nothing up there until the wind agrees to it, because at 11 and 12,000 feet, the wind moves snow sideways across bare tundra with nothing standing in its way, and it will refill a cleared cut in a matter of hours. The plows aren't beating the winter, They're waiting for it to stop paying attention. And if you drive it in the first week or two after it opens, which thousands of people deliberately do, you drive it between vertical walls of cut snow, standing well above the roof of your car, in July weather, with the windows down. The plow leaves a corridor. You drive through the corridor. On both sides of you is a cross-section of the entire winter, sliced clean, melting. Here's what I want you to sit with. The men who built this road had about 4 months a year to work on it, because that's all the mountain allowed. They spent 9 years assembling it in 4-month pieces. Trail Ridge Road today is open to through traffic for barely more than 5 months a year. 90-odd years of engineering, modern rotary plows that eat 21-foot drifts, and the schedule has moved by almost nothing, because the thing setting the schedule was never the road, and was never the engineering, and was never how badly 4 million people a year want to drive it. The road is a guest up there. It always was. It gets the same few months the construction crews got, on the same terms, for the same reason. Which brings you back to Rainbow Curve. It's still there. 10,829 feet on the eastern climb, the pull-off with the long view down into the valley. It has a parking area and a long view east over the valley, and on any clear afternoon between June and October, there are cars in it. People still get out. People still walk to the edge with a phone in their hand and turn to face east, out over the drop, because east is where the view is. East is why the overlook is there. That's what Gregory Cardwell was doing at 3:47 in the afternoon on July 12, 2014. It's what Rebecca Teelet was doing 1.75 miles away and 27 hours earlier on a marked trail in sight of the road. 2 people on holiday on the highest continuous paved road in the country, doing the one thing the road was designed to make them want to do. And the last fact is the one that should stay with you, because it's the reason none of this was avoidable by paying closer attention. In the 5 minutes before the bolt of lightning came down and killed Gregory Cardwell, the storm that produced it had not put a single strike on the ground anywhere within 6 miles of that overlook. There was nothing to see. There was nothing to count. There was nothing to hear. He was standing at a railing on a paved road in a national park, looking at a view in the middle of the afternoon.